Right now, I'm working on a series called Law and Order: Organized Crime, and I started the series. We did the pilot kind of coming right out of the pandemic. Like I got hired on this in August 2020, and and I've done rear projection stuff like actually with PRG before, like on Recount, a HBO movie that Jay Roach directed. We shot most of the movie in Florida because that's where it's set. It's the 2000 election recount, and we needed scenes of characters driving in Washington D.C. So this was in, I think, 2006. Video cameras still weren't quite there yet. There wasn't, definitely not the digital cameras that we have. So I sent a friend to Washington, D.C. with three 16 millimeter cameras in a minivan, and they shot plates driving around and then hooked us up with a Christie projector and a rear projection screen in Florida and sent the plates down. When you see the driving shots where Ed Begley is driving to the Supreme Court in that show, that was done rear projection. And so I've been messing around with this for a while. So when this technology came out, I was like, okay, this is how we should do driving shots, even on this show. I had worked with PRG, on Bad Moms. We did driving stuff that way, and it was a chase driving stunt scene. Oh, and the same thing on What Men Want. I'd also used the PRG system. You can really create a convincing environment for the performers in this as well. Like what's really interesting is instead of just kind of like pretending to drive, they're looking at the images of the world passing around behind them, and they can see, oh, here comes that car. Oh, I'm coming up to the stop sign. Oh, now I'm going to change lanes. Like all of that stuff just, after take one or two, it becomes automatic. What's really impressive is when you need a line of dialogue to hit at a certain place, like they're pulling the car over and they have to say a line at that moment. How, take one, everybody's confused. Oh my gosh, this is a disaster. Like take two, they're saying the line right as the car is pulling over, right when you need them to. And, the fact that it's repeatable, that they can see what's going on in their world. That for me is the key to doing this, as opposed to shooting against green screen. If you're going to go for process photography, this is the way to go. Everybody sees the environment. Everybody knows what's happening. The lighting is always much more convincing. When you walk away from the set at the end of the day, it's all done. There's no visual effects, no post-production compositing or anything like that. I think one of the things with actors is, especially when you're doing something that's, like a complicated visual effect, or, something where, it's not kind of a real environment on set, is the fear that they're going to look ridiculous when the rest of the scene gets put in around them and they're not reacting in a way that makes sense with the rest of the imagined world. And so to be able to, look at the screen and say, oh, this is what the car is doing right now. This is where I am in the world. They not only don't have to imagine it, they can see it, but they know that what they're doing relates to the world that they're in, especially if you have specific actions that have to happen. What's the reset time to get back to one? All of that is very slow. Here, when you want to reset, somebody pushes a button and you're back at the beginning of the plate. So you get a lot more done in the same amount of time. So not only are you not renting insert cars, and but you get a better performance because you're not just kind of stuck with whatever you happen to get in the one take that you could afford to do before you have to just move on. You can get a lot more driving done in one day. You can do driving shots with multiple vehicles and something else done before lunch. That's how you have to quantify it. You have to say, all right, well, this normally would have been like a 1.5 day shoot if we were out on an insert car, and we got it done before lunch. How much is that worth to you? And that's how you justify the cost. It's made it so that the writers don't have to worry about, like, if they want to set a scene in a car, if that's what makes sense. It's like, no problem. That's, it's as easy as setting it in any of our other sets. The screens do about, I'd say, 95% of the lighting. When you have a great operator, just D3 operator, disguise operator, you can move little areas of bright and dark around on the screens, and that kind of becomes your lighting setup. In the past season, I've added an orbiter that Aries LED spotlight to the package. And um, out of the disguise system, they send a video feed to our lighting console programmer, who then picks a little spot where the sun is on the on our video backgrounds, and so the orbiter light will brighten and dim as as the sun goes behind buildings or goes behind trees. That actually has been kind of the great like interactive lighting. I think that as a philosophy for for working with the full set of video walls is don't work too hard. The walls themselves actually do a lot of the lighting. Like as a rule of thumb, we usually shoot pretty much wide open at a T2, and that's to help keep the backgrounds from being too much in focus. And then if you can actually send the backgrounds even a little bit more out of focus if you want, using using the software. Getting a convincing composite, if you will, getting a convincing effect is about balancing the brightness of the off-screen walls and the brightness of the on-screen walls. Our special effects guy actually made some little vibrating motors for us that we mount to the camera that gives it just a little bit of shake like that, so that it looks like a camera that's mounted to a car. That's made things a little bit more convincing. Longer lenses, playing, keeping the focus selective and keeping the light balance between the off-camera screens and the on-camera screens, and let the off-camera screens do the lighting for you. We've actually already used these walls as sort of a virtual translate. Um, we've used it for when people open the back of our surveillance van and step out onto the street. I've just shot still photographs, from the proper height and camera angle of the street outside, and it's completely convincing. It looks like somebody's getting into the van from outside. We had to do, there was a sequence where we shot in a big industrial site at night, and after, it was a big lighting setup, big company move. And after they cut it together, they said, "Oh, we really would like a close-up of this person saying this line." And they're like, "Oh, what are we going to do? Do we have to go back there and light it?" And I said, "Well, I actually have some still photographs from my scout. We put the still photograph up on the screen, shot the actor standing right here saying their lines, and cut in. Nobody knew the difference. It's already there for for like these kind of simple things that might have been a green screen composite or something before. You can think of other creative ways to use the system aside from just driving process stuff. And I could definitely imagine one of these outside the window of a diner. So if you build a diner set, put up a video wall out the window, and you have a moving translite that that gives you the life and an energy of being on a real location.